Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, The Future of Audit, Alleviate Common Business Challenges and Increase Capacity. First and foremost, we hope that you and your loved ones are happy, healthy, and staying safe. For today's webinar, Technology Product Manager Lisa Erickson and Consulting Manager Dana Yates will discuss challenges firms are facing in the remote work environment and strategies that can be implemented to increase capacity. Before I hand it over to our speakers, I have a few housekeeping items to cover. Wolters Kluwer CCH is registered with NASPA as a sponsor of continuing professional education on the National Registry of CPE Sponsors. As such, we are excited to offer 1 CPE credit for today's webinar. A total of 3 polls will be conducted throughout the presentation, and you will have the opportunity to participate in all 3 of them in order to receive CPE credit. If you experience any technical difficulties when trying to submit your poll response, please make sure you let us know in the questions pane of the control panel. This way we can record your answer manually and get you your CPE certificate. Your CPE certificate will be sent to the email you registered for the webinar within 72 hours after the session. If you don't receive your certificate within 72 hours, please email us at marketing@xamsolutions.com. Please note, CPE is not available when viewing the on-demand version of this webinar. For a copy of today's recording, please email marketing@xamsolutions.com. If you have any technical difficulties, please submit your questions into the questions pane of the control panel, and we will address them at that point. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Lisa Erickson and Dana Yates.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. And welcome everyone for joining us today in part 1 of our Future of Audit webinar series. Today, our discussion is on alleviating the common business challenges and increasing capacity. Before Lisa and I make our formal introductions, I want to begin by covering what topics we will be discussing in detail for today's seminar. First, we'll take a look at the productivity trends firms are experiencing today. Next, what common capacity changes firms are facing. And then we'll dive into the various key strategies that your firm can implement on how to increase staff capacity. And as Alyssa shared, we will be saving time at the very end to address any questions you have over the next hour. So again, we encourage you to use the chat and we'll address those questions at that time. Let me begin by introducing my colleague and co-speaker for today's webinar, Lisa Erickson. Lisa, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. My name is Lisa Erickson. I am the product manager for the firm management products here at Wolters Kluwer. That includes practice management, access practice, workstream, IQ, and also XCM. Very glad to be here today and talk more about the challenges. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dana.
And my name is Dana Yates. I am a consulting manager here at Wolters Kluwer, and I lead the A&A Professional and Client Services team. My team's focus is to provide training and consulting services for our accounting and auditing products, which include ProSystem FX Engagement, Knowledge Coach, and Teammate Analytics. Now, before we take a dive into our first topic, productivity trends, I'm going to hand it back over to Alyssa for a polling question.
Thank you, Dana. I'm going to launch our first polling question. And the first polling question is, how has the landscape of COVID-19 impacted your firm? Offering new COVID-related services, staffing changes, office closures, new communication needs, or all of the above? As a reminder, you need to complete all 3 polling questions in order to receive CPE credit. We'll give you just about 30 more seconds to complete the first polling question. About 15 more seconds. All right, I'm going to close the poll and I'm going to share the response. And I'm going to turn it back over to Lisa and Dana for your thoughts.
I think I was anticipating all of the above. But it is
Yeah,
interesting to see that, there's specific ones for offering new services, office closures, definitely being a big one there.
yeah, I expected it to be all of the above. 'Cause there's just so many challenges that firms deal with on a day-to-day basis. Although I did notice that the staffing changes was 0, but the other ones got something.
So
So
that's
that was a
good.
little surprising, right?
Yeah, that's good. Nobody has to worry about any issues with staffing changes. That's not a problem.
That would be nice for sure. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about some top challenges that accounting firms deal with, and some of the trends that we are seeing as well. So um, one trend we're seeing is regarding the uh, automating your accounting processes. So I think especially with the pandemic that this has become more critical. You're not all in the one office together where, for example, you're preparing a tax return and you have a paper trail about, okay, who's going to collect this information. So the office manager can be collecting the information from the client. You have someone that scans in that information, and then you have the preparer, the reviewer. So there's a lot of moving parts to a project, to a particular project, such as preparing tax returns. And so there are, more firms that are looking at what they can do to automate their accounting processes. About 50% of executives expect that the accounting processes will be more automated in the coming years. Another trend out there is the rise of accounting software solutions. So we've heard from many firms that they're using spreadsheets still to track such things as fixed assets for their clients, and importing that into their tax product. And more of them are looking at actually using accounting software for that as well. So that is definitely another trend out there. Another one I think a lot of firms can relate to is regarding outsourcing accounting functions. So this is a big challenge where firms have difficulty with finding the talent that they need out there. And so outsourcing is definitely an option out there to find that qualified staff to do the accounting work and also the tax preparation. With XCM, we do have Expatax, which is an outsourcing solution where we have firms that contact us about doing their client accounting services and also their tax work. And definitely that is something we hear from them, just with a challenge. Also a benefit we hear from firms is that, by outsourcing, you don't have to worry about having to figure out all those benefits and all of that. So it's definitely a challenge for firms, but also a trend we're seeing with more firms moving to outsourcing solutions. And then, of course, with the pandemic this last year, we've heard about more firms, of course, moving to cloud-based accounting as well. So about 67% of accountants have said that cloud-based solutions actually make their job easier. And I expect that to continue to trend up as well. Another trend out there is the focus on data analytics. A new role that accountants are finding is that is moving into advisory services. Taking that data and being able to share that information with their clients so that they can improve their processes and efficiencies. We see here, as far as with the different size firms and who's moving to cloud-based, and we see about 58% of large firms have moved to cloud-based solutions. 57% for mid-sized firms, and 45% for small firms. So I just want to stop here for a minute and get Dana's input here as well, as far as with what you have heard from firms.
Yeah, I'm happy to see the small firms number. I think that one is higher than I anticipated it to be because I feel like a lot of times when you think of larger firms, they have, more resources for better technology. And a lot of times they are kind of on the cutting edge when it comes to newer technology, and the smaller firms aren't there. So it's nice to see, these numbers, kind of consistent across the board here, because I think for smaller firms, they definitely could benefit from cloud-based, accounting software, and just, having, in a way, recruiting talent to come to their firms as well to make sure that they're giving them tools that, give an employee and hybrid, work environment.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It, what we have heard as well is that just, being able to communicate with their clients, having all that information all in one place, and just that collaboration among staff members is really key as well. So let's look at the next slide here. So I find this to be interesting as well, just as far as with the digital transformation. So we heard from many accountants out there that actually it was 69% said that digital transformation strategy was high or top priority prior to the pandemic. So of course, we see this question here: who led the digital transformation of your company? And of course, with the pandemic, it was COVID-19. And based on that, now 67% of those firms accelerated their digital transformation strategy since the COVID-19. And then 63% increased their digital transformation budget since COVID-19. So this is definitely very interesting how what we call, the work from home experiment, due to the pandemic, just that transformation where firms are saying, hey, I have a distributed workforce. We really have to figure out how we're going to work. We all need to be able to see the same information, because we are in different locations. So it's been really incredible to see that transformation. Dana, what have you seen from your side?
Yeah, I think when it comes to, accountants and auditors, it's always the joke, we hate change. And there's, a lot of times in this culture of, accounting firms, we feel that we have to be physically in an office. And we have to be, very customer facing. So I think the silver lining here is that, we have that push. Looking at this, it's COVID-19 that pushed us, to transform, what we're doing technology wise versus, our managers and partners here at the firm. So this is definitely, a silver lining. And as we go into our next slide, Lisa, you had said it. It is, this pandemic has definitely given us this, the entire world, this largest work from home experiment here, because it's not just, the CPA profession. It's everyone, thinking about your spouse or your partner and what industry they are in, and are they now, working from home. Um, let's take a look at the results here. So this is kind of fantastic results. We have to think about that, 81% of firms expect an increase in people working remotely post-pandemic. So like I said, the culture has been that we need to physically be in the office. We need to physically be, in front of the client. So that's a lot of change that's happening here, within over a year. And also, we're seeing that employees that we have a peak here. Employee engagement occurs when employees spend 60 to 80% of their time working remotely. I remember back early in my career where many partners just felt that they had to see us, working. They kind of had to watch us to make sure that we were being productive. So it's great that, we can have this hybrid work environment. We can be working from home and still be as productive if we were actually, in the office. So, here we do expect the business challenges to be the same. Here with our industry, so even though we have a higher percentage of our long-term, remote workers, people are going to be working from home more. We're still going to have those same business challenges. So let's kind of break out what those business challenges are, today and tomorrow for our business challenges. And with this, I'm going to look at our challenges that are for our managers and what challenges are common for our employees. So, like I said, we just reported that optimal engagement is at 60 to 80% for our work from home employees. So, we still have a challenge there for managers to keep employees motivated and, more importantly, keeping them accountable. So, building a company culture and maintaining employee morale with a hybrid work environment definitely is a big challenge. And lastly, here, as the pandemic continues to change, so do the priorities of the employee. So you want to make sure that if you are a manager, you're aligning your employees to those changing priorities. Because obviously, this can be difficult for you as a manager when your employees are in a hybrid work environment. On the flip side, we're going to take a look here with our employees and what challenges they face. So in a hybrid environment, we continue to face, the same challenges. And I know this is always the biggest challenge for me when I was an auditor, is just, thinking about your priorities. Priorities are changing. But here with the pandemic, they also have, just financial uncertainty or other things that could be going on. We have to think about that the country is beginning to transition to phases where many things are reopening. So a lot of our employees are going to be faced with the same disruption to their routine. We have to think about other family members working from home. It's still a pandemic, so we could have also family members that may be sick that need to be taken care of. I think the biggest challenge from working from home has definitely been, if you have kids, it has been, juggling the education for your kids. And then also depending on where you are, do you have the resources, to work from home? So you have to kind of think of something as simple as just internet, reliability. So the key takeaways here, for managers, you want to be aware of your employees' feelings, the environment that they are working in, and employees, you definitely want to use this opportunity to really reconnect with your customers. It may be a while, it may have been a while since you've seen them face to face. So you might have to build a relationship and a connection, just a different way. Lisa, would you agree with this? Do you feel like these are challenges? Are there any more that you have seen?
I think these are definitely the big challenges out there. I would say,
Are there
you know,
challenges maybe personally that you could probably connect just to being,
yeah,
working from
yeah.
home?
I was just thinking about a firm I had actually spoke with just yesterday, talking about how his staff actually um, was challenged actually working from home. They felt like they had to be in the office meeting, and he said, no, go home. We've got all the technology set up. You can go ahead and call in. And he said one of the biggest challenges was just them learning to use that technology. So that was something they had to overcome. And I've heard that from other firms as well. They weren't used to using the webcams and Teams or whatever that they use out there, Zoom. So that was a big challenge for them to overcome, and getting them to be more comfortable with that. But they have found that they're just as productive. They still, again, have that hybrid model. So they come into the office and still have that face-to-face contact, but then they also find that they're just as productive working from home. Their clients have definitely accepted um, that type of communication as well, with video conferencing, etc. So I think that the expectations have really changed this last year, of course, with the pandemic, and again that experiment we talked about, the big work at home experiment. And I think it has actually worked out very well, and it's definitely changed the way we work. Unfortunate, of course, the pandemic has been terrible, but as far as with how we work, it's definitely made firms look at things differently.
I totally agree. I think it's amazing to me how it's just so been quickly embraced. Even for what I do and just working with our customers, we're doing more video conferencing, more accountability, and you never know what can come up. Lisa and I were just having a conversation right at the start, and we were talking about our animals. Making sure you guys didn't hear our animals on the call. But yeah, it's sometimes fun to see people work from home when kids run in and animals, and life just kind of goes on, and you have to do your best to kind of focus on that work day. So speaking of that, let's just kind of talk a little bit about a day in the life of the hybrid remote employee here. So first things first, we start kind of the morning. It's 8:12 a.m. Maybe not starting right there at 8 o'clock. It may take us a bit, but you've got your coffee. You've maybe checked your emails. It's a good opportunity at the start of the day, just to kind of check in with the status of your team and see where you are, within the projects and, your workflow, what you're currently working on. By 8:30, you may have your first Zoom meeting, because as we mentioned, yeah, with technology, it may taken you a while to get adapted to new programs, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, whatever it may be. So we have our first Zoom meeting. 10:15, you're in another Zoom meeting, and at this level, your priorities may have changed. Maybe for one meeting, I'm meeting with a customer. Maybe another meeting is internally. So, there might be different things that you have to, give your attention to, different plates and things that you're juggling there. By 12:30, you find out an employee is sick and unable to work. So now you may have to find out, what were they working on? Do I need to find someone else that's available to cover for that person? By 1 p.m., maybe we can squeeze 30 minutes in for lunch here, but then maybe right after, you've got to quickly eat because you've got back-to-back Zoom meetings that are coming up. And, we never know what can go on, in the accounting world as an auditor. So at 4:45, maybe you are interrupted by a crisis. And then maybe by 5:10, you kind of have to, decide, and maybe there's a call that you need to do to your friends or a text just to tell them, to let them know you can't make it tonight, maybe work calls. And I think that's my biggest challenge. I've worked from home for many, many years. And I think sometimes even for myself, it's hard to separate, work um, from your home life when it's definitely together. It's a lot easier when you're physically working in an office. You can shut down that computer and you can leave and go home. So it's really finding that balance. Would you agree, Lisa?
Oh, yes, yes. As you're saying that, I'm like, I can totally relate to that. My the good thing is that my office is in a whole different area of my house, and I try not to go in there when I'm not working, but sometimes it's just hard as well, just to have that separation. So I've heard that from others as well. But yeah, something I have to work at for sure to try to have
And
that separation.
definitely. And I mean, it's a common challenge for everyone. So that's what we have to kind of think about. It's just like now we are disconnected. We're not physically together. So what tools and ways, how can we feel connected? How can we, drive accountability and morale? I do want to just mention a quote here. This came from one of our customers. This is a partner that was in the part of an office, a CPA office in New York, in the state of New York. And the quote is, "We needed an automated workflow solution that would allow us to create greater visibility and control over our work across all of our offices." So, with this, again, it's really critical. And this quote just kind of tells me how critical it is, even more so today, to make sure that we have automated workflow solutions that, are going to provide visibility and really work, throughout your audit department. With that said, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Lisa. You'll talk about our capacity challenges.
Yes, yes. It definitely is a challenge for firms, just making sure that they have the right work for, um, to staff different projects. You know, that, if you have, for example, an audit engagement and you don't have the right people at the right time, you risk going over, and that could be very costly. Another big challenge we hear out there, of course, is the employee engagement. Are we giving them challenging work as well so that we can retain them, develop them, and help elevate them to that next level at the firm as well? What are some of those projects? They don't always want to go to the same staff for the same type of work. They want to also stretch them. That's another big challenge out there. And then as far as with just having the tools in place so that um, you can manage that staffing and figure out, hey, who is that best person for this particular job? Who is available? If I schedule this particular project here, is that person even going to be available? So it's a lot of information that a firm has to track and make sure that they are on budget as well. So definitely a challenge. Dana, have you heard this also from firms, or from your experience, what have you heard?
I mean, I have, because again, I mean, it's not just walking down the hall and popping into somebody's office. It is, you have to kind of have a better picture of, who is available, who can I get. One thing that kind of struck with me, and I think I'm guilty of it too, that, you have to think about who can you trust with the task, who has the knowledge, and you don't want to be delegating to the same person all the time. You want to make sure that you're stretching out the wealth, and, we're sharing the work, because the workload's always going to be there, for a CPA firm. So we just want to make sure that everybody's getting their fair share.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Alyssa for another polling question.
Fantastic. And the second polling question is, what key business challenges keep you up at night? Tracking and managing projects, due dates, and deliverables, ensuring I meet my deadlines and address bottlenecks, keeping track of rapidly changing priorities, no visibility to upstream work coming down the pipe, and I sleep the night worry-free. And we'll give everyone about 45 more seconds. And as a reminder, this is the second polling question. You'll need to complete all 3 polling questions in order to receive your CPE certificate. Just about 15 more seconds. All right, I'm going to close the poll and share the results and turn it back over to you, Lisa.
Thank you. That is what I thought would be the top one right there, the one on top. So it's always
I am
fun
surprised. I
to
need to know
guess it.
who is. I want to know who's sleeping worry free at night. Maybe we need to turn the microphone over to that 5%.
Yeah, I tell you, they must have a really exhausting day, and is able to sleep very well.
Another one that's top here, just keeping track of the projects and the reliability. That one also a top one.
Yes, yeah, that was interesting as well. So I'm going to talk about strategies to create capacity. One particular strategy, if we go to the next slide, thank you, is establish a business process. So the challenges we hear from firms is that their staff has a particular process. They may not have exposure to what that particular process is. It's invisible to them. You know, they're tracking their project, but if, let's say, they're out all of a sudden, they don't know where that project's at. They find it to be difficult to organize a system, and being able to have that critical information right there readily available. So what we've heard from firms as far as with what they have done to help with this is to figure out a system where you can create that visibility, where anyone can look to see where a particular project is, what is that due date, tracking as far as with if a project's behind, receiving notifications. So if you have a tax return you're doing, for example, that you're targeting to be completed by, let's say, March 15th. They want a system not just to track the due date of the return, but to actually target when they want to complete that project, so that they can make sure they have that capacity for other tax returns that come in after that date, and make sure they're properly planning for that. So definitely, firms, again, have just found that, sometimes spreadsheets don't work. There's not transparency. They may have it copied down on their local drive. And so if another partner wants to see where a project is, they may not have exposure to that. So what we're going to look at here is actually XCM. So XCM is a workflow solution where you can actually track projects, track the budgets, etc., those due dates, important due dates. So here we have, of course, an audit. And of course, with an audit, there's a lot of moving pieces. There's the initial information gathering. There's, of course, the confirmations, the field work, the preparation of the financial statements. There's a lot of different stages. So what XCM allows you to do is be able to see where that particular project is, what are those due dates. If it's behind, that will be very clear to you. You'll see that there's different checklists and sign-offs that you can track as well. So again, firms have that transparency. There's a documented process as well. We'll get into, in another slide here, we'll get into actual checklists where you basically have a documented process for completing that particular project as well. So definitely, firms have found a workflow solution such as XCM. There's, of course, other workflow solutions out there, has really helped them to transform them moving into that digital world as well, and kind of throwing away that paper and not having to deal with Excel. It's been amazing with how much time this has saved firms out there and those headaches. So perhaps that person that sleeps very well at night may have a really good system in place, something like this.
I just want to add, Lisa, a lot of times with firms, divided between audit versus tax, like they have a good process when it comes to, tax returns and the stages and the handoff. But with audit workflow, a lot of times, for a manager, they may have, running multiple audits and really don't have a clear picture on where their staff, where they are within the process. So I think a lot of times it's like firms are doing a good job in one department, but they're not really figuring out ways that, hey, we could be doing the same thing in our audit workflow as well. And these are definitely tools that we could implement
Hmm.
to keep better control on, where are my auditors within this audit? Where do I need to kind of shift focus? Because the thing with auditing, it's really not as black and white as a tax return, because things can come up at any point and any stage, and we want to make sure that we're focusing, our efforts on, making sure that everything else is running smoothly, so when those things do come up, we can take care of them in a timely manner. So that's what's great about tools like this.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
So I think that's a good segue, though, of getting in control. So how can we get in control? So I do have some questions just kind of up here on, on the screen. And think about these questions as I read them out loud, and kind of ask these questions, to yourself, and what your answer would be. So can you list all of the sources of incoming work? So, we have to think of a way that we're managing all of these audits. And, maybe you think you're doing this well. Right now it might just be a list to say, okay, this is all of the audits we have, coming in. But we have to kind of put judgment there to kind of judge your firm's workload. Are we taking on too much? Do we have staff capacity to meet the needs in our audit workflow? Next question here, what portion of work and requests are, predictable? There are certain audits in certain areas that you're going to be doing, the same procedures. So we just want to kind of think about, again, just making sure that we're meeting capacity. We know what, those needs are, so we're allocating them appropriately. How much of this work is unpredictable? Like I said, issues can come up at any point, any stage of the audit. So we definitely want to make sure that we are prepared for anything unexpected, and then we have the time to cover those unexpected items. Um, can I have a process for structured requests? Sometimes when we are engaged to do the audit, I know for myself, I come from a background where I audited a lot of not-for-profit type entities. And, we're doing the auditing, but we have to kind of do a little bit more. So, are we meeting the needs? Can we go that extra mile for our customer? Are we still going to meet capacity there? What if you didn't have to answer every request, personally? So here, thinking about, what automation tools could assist and help, our clients, maybe with even data, work paper collection, maybe even internally delegation to another staff member. And also here, can you trust something was done without seeing it? So, as a manager, we want to make sure, if I'm managing an audit, everything is taken care of. But if I've got a lot of things happening, I can't check on every single item. So it's nice to have a structure, just to help me reduce the time for follow up. So you want to think about and getting control that you're creating predictability within your processes and your resources. So this way you can organize the chaos surrounding your audit engagements. Getting in control of your work stream and resources are the foundations of creating the thread of truth. And here, this just means that you have absolute confidence in knowing that the source is correct and location is constant for information. So, with this, going into the next slide here, we're going to kind of start with this quote quote on screen, and then we'll kind of go through some ways that you can get in control for your firm and your audit workflow. So this quote is from Peter Matheson, and he is a Lean Six Sigma black belt. And many of you are aware of what Lean Six Sigma is. It's one of the best known methodologies for process improvement. And it might be specifically, for kind of manufacturing processes, but I think there's a lot of knowledge and things that you can gain even with technology and other types of companies and even CPA firms. So, with his quote here, when daily operations are under control, you don't have to fix issues from yesterday and today. You can focus on tomorrow. So think about that. Think about when you're getting in control, this is what your ultimate goal is. That, everything from yesterday, everything from today, that's handled. It's running smoothly. And we're focusing on tomorrow, what issues and things that may come up and arise. So with this, you want to make sure that you're building a framework that's going to provide guidance and work requirements for your staff. Again, I know Lisa mentioned kind of documentation. It really is key to have best practices for your firm. So really creating documentation of your processes, may it be predictable workflows or ad hoc. But, again, we have to think about the environment that we're now working on. So if these issues do come up, your staff members are, ready to address those. Really looking at how you can identify and empower the roles and skills of your employees. What types of, work do they excel at? Am I making sure that I'm assigning the person the correct task? Decide on how work will be routed and the allocation of your resources, and assure you are orchestrating the workflow. That's key, orchestrating the workflow, not just managing it. And then what's more importantly here, you want to make sure that you have a way to measure this process. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to lean on Lisa here, and she's going to just kind of talk about and discuss how XCM can assist firms in getting in control by really getting in front of the storm.
Thanks, Dana. So within XCM, again, it allows you to manage your different projects. So audit is a great example. There's a lot of moving pieces. As Dana was talking about, you want to be able to identify those bottlenecks before, it becomes a big problem, and ensure that those deadlines are met. For a particular audit, you may not necessarily want to track every single status of an audit. You may just have a status, for example, field work. Well, what does field work mean exactly? Well, with the checklist, that is actually a section within the project where you can track all those different checklist items and have that documented process. And it gives you that peace of mind that, okay, all of this work is done, or it's been assigned, or I see that this particular due date is coming up, and hey, this particular person is out of the office, and so now I know that I need to assign it to someone else. But again, you get that peace of mind just knowing that everything is on track, or if it's not, you're alerted about that. So really a great way to manage those audits that you have. Again, you may have to manage many different audits that Dana was talking about, and so it may be necessary to move one person from a particular audit to another one because a particular audit may be behind and another one may be ahead. So this really gives you those tools to be able to manage all of that. Dana, from your experience, did you have anything else to add to that?
No, I totally agree. I think this excites me more because I'm like if this was all existed when I was in the profession and worked as an auditor, it would have been wonderful. I was definitely
I
using
totally
the
agree.
Excel back in the day.
that is what I had used as well, and I would have loved a solution like this.
All right, I think we're going to throw it over to Alyssa. She has another polling question for the group.
Thank you. This is our third and final polling question. And the polling question is, where do you spend the majority of your time today? Managing technologies to meet business objectives, interacting with people to meet business objectives, business process management and compliance, reporting, including data collection, validation, and analysis, or all over the board dealing with the crisis of the day. And we'll give everyone about 30 to 40 more seconds to complete the polling question. Dana and Lisa, where do you think the poll is going to land for this one? What are your initial thoughts?
All over the board.
I feel like if I was personally answering it, that would probably be my response.
It looks like that's where it's trending. There's about 10 more seconds to complete the third and final polling question. As a reminder, you'll need to complete all three in order to receive your CPE. All right, we're going to close the poll and share the results. And it looks like you both were right on target with all over the board dealing with the crisis of the day.
That is really high, 63%. I expected it to be high, but not that high. Wow.
Not that high.
Yeah.
I know. I really think that sometimes my role is just fireman because or fire person, just kind of putting out the fires here and there. What crisis does come up?
So we're moving to the third strategy for managing capacity. So another strategy out there is flexibility. So things to think about: what has disrupted you today? How has your role changed? What's driving the change today and tomorrow? Of course, we know about the COVID-19 disruption, our distributed workforce, regulations and complexity that we have to make sure, of course, with the pandemic, that we were following all those guidelines. Of course, things are starting to open up, which is really good news. And looking at your business strategy and technology as well. So just thinking about 2 to 3 measures of what you would do to implement to improve your business process. So just think about that as well. You know, again, just having that flexibility, you know, has been huge this last year. And it has, of course, allowed firms to be creative with how they get that work done, even though staff's working from home. You know, just allowing that flexibility, not, you know, making them come to the office, making them feel safe. That has been huge, just having that flexibility, I would say. Dana, what's your input on this particular strategy?
You know, with this one, I mean, I feel that I mean, yeah, kind of what you said. It's just really, I mean, kind of changing up how you typically have handled your workflow because you're in this new environment, and just kind of adapting to, you know, all of the change that's come up. I mean, obviously you're still going to have your day-to-day business challenges, but there are new things that, you know, could definitely kind of happen here.
Definitely. And when we move to the next slide here as well, if firms have found this particular screen within XCM to be really handy. This is the manage users screen within XCM, and it's nice because at a glance you can take a look at your particular staff members and see, you know, what is their expertise. So what is their specialty for industries, their niche group, what is their primary role. So this is all key information in order to schedule them to different jobs as well. And again, things we were talking about is, that flexibility. And, because you do have staff that's all over the place, you don't have to check with them going like, hey, what skills do you have again? Would you be comfortable with this? You have all that information right here at your fingertips. So this has been huge, again, just allowing for that flexibility out there, allowing, again, their staff to work remotely and figuring out, just maintaining this information where they can go ahead and, which particular jobs and projects they can assign them to as well.
I think that's key too, because it's just like you're not really asking like, "Hey, can you handle this?" And it's a conversation. It really is, "Hey, I see that you're available. You can take on this challenge. You're knowledgeable in this, subject. Here, here's the work."
Absolutely. Totally agree with that. So Dana, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you for our next strategy.
Yeah, this is our last strategy of today. This is enabling accountability because, again, everybody's working from home. We want to make sure that everybody is working and doing what they should be doing and still being productive. So, another list of questions here just to ask yourself, are you able to leverage resources effectively in the distributed workforce environment? Again, employees are working from home, so we need to know that they are available and they can handle a certain task, as we were just discussing. Do the people doing the work clearly understand, what is expected? So we want to make sure that the staff has a clear picture of what their workflow expectations are, their workload expectations. And we don't want to spend too much time explaining, because when we do that, that of course takes from our workday. Can they anticipate those upstream, challenges? So again, just making sure that they're prepared for anything that comes their way. Do they have a clear set of instructions? Do they have knowledge for the particular task? Do they have a history? Again, very in line with what we were just talking about, as we discussed flexibility. So making sure that we're choosing that correct person. What would it mean to you if you or your team were more effective? Could this reduce the overall audit hours? Which would be wonderful, fantastic. A lot of times that's our ultimate goal. But maybe we're not looking at a reduction in hours. Maybe we're just looking at a shift of focus. Maybe I have a riskier area or a significant audit area that I feel that we need to spend more time on. And also, what is missing in achieving this today? Do we have a way to manage tasks and assure that these tasks are completed? So you want to think about, to enable accountability, you want to lean towards action. This, of course, is going to build momentum. A firm with effective resources can often get a flywheel concept going once their staff understand what they need to do and where the work is located, how they need to find that, how important the task is. So that's why the resources and technology can definitely be key here to manage that. Before I turn it over to Lisa, though, I do want to think about just kind of the staff here. Now, we just kind of talked about, enabling accountability for our staff, but really, what are our employees thinking? These statistics with our enabling. So if we go to the next slide, please. So looking just kind of at some statistics, this is part of the 4 disciplines of execution. So this is a book by Chris McChesney, Sean Tovey, and Jim Hewling. What they did is they commissioned a research study with hundreds of companies. So this was prior to the pandemic. So the results here found that 81% of employees said that they weren't held accountable for regular progress on goals. And 87% said they had no clear idea what they should do to achieve a goal or a task. So again, this is taken prior to COVID. So those numbers could be, a bit higher if something is not in place, if there's not a structure, to organize the workflow. So as we move into, our XCM products on the next slide, I'm going to ask Lisa to discuss. So aligning your talent to the work.
Absolutely. So this is the calendar scheduler within XCM here. And as you may remember in that prior slide, we were looking at the user view, and again, being able to see their specialties, their niche groups, that's their specialty, expertise level, what is their role, etc. So what this calendar allows you to do is actually see their availability as well. And then you can go ahead and schedule them to the different projects as well. And all those things that Dana was just talking about, that really helps with all of that. Just again, aligning your talent to the particular work and engaging your team as well, making sure you're assigning them to the right task, where they have that skills, but then also to challenge them to develop them as well. So this is a very powerful tool. Firms I have spoken to really love this. So we're really excited about this feature. And again, this saves so many headaches out there, just trying to coordinate all the different schedules, having to look in many different places to track this information. It's all here in one place.
Definitely saving some time, which is the ultimate goal.
Absolutely.
This is amazing.
Absolutely. So I think at this point we are going to go ahead and hand it over to Alyssa before we run out of time here.
Thank you very much. This concludes our presentation. We do have a few minutes for Q&A. We do have a few questions. If we don't get to your question during today's webinar, we'll be sure to follow up afterwards. The first question is, what challenges do you foresee as we move into a post-COVID environment?
Well, go ahead, Lisa. You go ahead.
Well, it was interesting just seeing some of the surveys that have been done out there. I saw one particular survey where 85% of accounting firms had said that they would definitely consider their staff working remotely and continue that post-pandemic. So I think that will definitely be a trend we'll continue to see. And again, more and more firms moving to the cloud as well. They're really recognizing that benefit of that collaboration between their staff and their clients, having a collaboration system that they can communicate easily with their clients and being able to collect information from them back and forth in a secure portal. I would say that definitely is a top trend out there.
I agree. I think firms kind of have to figure out what the mix is going to be, what the hybrid equation is going to be. How much do they want their staff coming into the office, if it's even necessary? That will be kind of the challenge, because there's a lot of firms out there that, everybody's back into the office. I mean, we might have social distancing, but they are working that way. So I think, to promote talent and bring people into this industry, just because, so many industries now, people are working from home. I think you have to be a firm that's going to adapt with how, other companies and other industries are working.
Fantastic. Thank you both. I know we're almost at the top of the hour, so I do want to thank you all for joining us. We are excited to host Part 2 and 3 of our Future of Audit webinar series. Part 2 takes place Thursday, July 15th. Your speaker is Mark McAndrew, who's our Director of Product Management within Wolters Kluwer, and Part 3 takes place August 12th, and we're excited to have Jim Borg with Witham and Jamie Bellinger, who's part of the Wolters Kluwer team, join us for Part 3 of our webinar. So we hope that you all can join us for that as well. And this would conclude our webinar for today. So I just want to say on behalf of the team, thank you for attending, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.